and welcome to the GSMC Book Review Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Entertainment Network. I am your host, Sarah. I am delighted to be with you on this Christmas Eve. I have another author interview to share with you. As we get started, I do want to remind you to like, follow, and subscribe on whatever platform you are listening to the podcast on. That really does help the algorithm. Also, if you would like to help out the podcast and the network as a whole, you can go to gsmcpodcast.info. There you can leave a tip or a donation. That, again, really helps out the network as a whole and this podcast, and all of the support that you give is always greatly appreciated, no matter what form that support takes. Once again, that link is gsmcpodcast.info. You see it next to me. You'll also see it scrolling along throughout the episode. Happy Christmas Eve. I hope that you are having a wonderful day so far. If you are someone who celebrates Christmas, maybe who does anything special on Christmas Eve, hope that your day is going well. We are getting ready to go to some friends for dinner. They invited us last year and it was a lot of fun, a lot of food. I don't know if it's a big family from what I'm used to, because I don't come from a very big family. It's not a big family for what my husband is used to, so somewhere in between. I don't know if it's a big family by Portuguese standards. Don't know, but there's a lot of food and they're really, really nice. And they're very kind, and they help us with our Portuguese, and they speak a lot of English, which is very, very kind of them. Otherwise, I would be lost. We do a lot of Google Translate, a lot of charades, a lot of my limited Portuguese, their very good English, and we make it work. So I am very grateful that we got the invitation again this year. It's a family that I like very, very much, and we spend a lot of time. It's our neighbors, and then so we don't see their family as much. Maybe just on holidays and here and there occasionally. So it's really nice when we get to see them and hang out with them. So whatever you're doing today, I hope that it is wonderful and enjoyable. If you are with family, soak that up. If you are without family and you're feeling homesick, then my heart goes out to you. If you're someone who doesn't do family, then whatever it is that you do, I hope that you have found family, but I hope that this day, this week is bringing you joy. And Hanukkah also starts this week, so it's always interesting to me when Hanukkah and Christmas line up like that. They don't, the dates move for Hanukkah, so this year they are coinciding a little bit. So happy Hanukkah for those of you who celebrate that as well. Lots and lots of holidays this time of year. So happy holidays, whatever you happen to be celebrating. Let's talk about a book. I have returning guest Tracy Clark with me this episode. She was here to talk about her first book in this series. This is the Harriet Foster series. The first book was called Hide. The second book is called Fall. This one is called Echo. Let me go ahead and give you the description of this third installment of the series. Hardwicke House, home to Belverton College's exclusive Minotaur Society, is no stranger to tragedy. And when a body turns up in the field next to the mansion, the scene looks chillingly familiar. Chicago PD sends hard-nosed detective Harri Foster to investigate. The victim is Brice Collier, a wealthy Belverton student whose billionaire father, Sebastian, owns Hardwicke and ranks as a major school benefactor. Sebastian also has ties to the mansion's notorious past, when 30 years ago, hazing led to a student's death in the very same field. Could the deaths be connected? With no suspects or leads, Harri and her partner, Detective Vera Li, will have to dig deep to find answers. No charges were ever filed in the first case, and this time Harri's determined the killer must pay. But still grieving her former partner's death, Harri must also contend with a shadowy figure called the Voice, and their dangerous game of cat and mouse could threaten everything. So again, that is the description of Echo. It is the third book in the Harriet Foster series, and it is crime fiction, as you can probably tell. We've got a murder, we've got winter in Chicago, which just you can see on the cover. It's cold and snowy, and Chicago winter. I've spent weekends in Chicago in the winter, and that's enough. That is enough for me. I do not need that intense. And I'm from Montana, where it gets really cold, but Chicago is a different kind of cold for me. And especially now that I live where we get 300 days of sun a year, Chicago winter just does not sound like someplace that I want to spend. So I just felt cold the entire time I was reading this book, and everyone's always just bundled up and going out into the sleet and the slush and the snow. And but there's also a crime that needs to be solved. There is a murder. There are two murders, but they're 30 years apart. There's lots of different things to figure out. In addition to the current case being investigated by Harriet and her partner Vera, there's an ongoing situation that has been developing throughout the course of the three books, and Harri is trying to figure out what's going on with that, who is involved, why they are doing what they are doing. I don't want to give too much away, but that is an arc that's been developing and continues to develop through this, that adds another layer to this story. Let's go ahead and let Tracy talk about the book so you can hear more about the series and this book in particular. Again, it's the Harriet Foster series. This book is Echo, and the author is Tracy Brown. Tracy Brown, that would be a friend of mine. Not the author of this series. The author is Tracy Clark. My apologies. Hi, Tracy. Welcome back to the podcast.
Hello. Hi, Sarah. Thanks for having me.
It is nice to have you. I'm excited to talk to you and to talk about this newest book in the Harriet Foster series. Before we do, if you wouldn't mind giving a refresher, just reintroducing yourself so my listeners can either get to know you or refresh their memories on who you are.
Right. Well, I am Tracy Clark. I am the author of the Cass Rains series and also the Detective Harriet Foster series, both set in Chicago, both featuring strong female protagonists and their team of misfits. And so Echo is the latest installment in the Harriet Foster series. And it's about a murder case or cases that are separated by decades, but they're somehow sort of linked. And so my homicide team has to sort of figure it all out and figure out what kind of killer waits 30 years to kill again. So it's kind of a weird sort of a thing to sort of write, and I hope readers enjoy it.
And this is the third in the series. So the first time you were here, we talked about the first one. So it's always a little bit tricky to talk about a series, especially if you've got people who've maybe read one or haven't read any. So we'll do our best to talk about things. What was your inspiration for? I mean, obviously we have the murders 30 years apart, but what sparked that idea? What was your inspiration for this particular book?
Well, this one started with the setting. I found a field next to a college campus that looked pretty interesting. Interesting place to sort of put a body. I was looking for some place to put it fictionally, and so this field, I passed by this field. I said, "That's interesting." And then I said, well, what kind of case would sort of pop up from there? And then I sort of put a frat house where another house used to be or is. It's not quite a frat house, but I made it that. So now the story starts to percolate. We've got a dead body. We've got a field there. We've got the college campus right in a near distance. And then now we've got a frat house that I've created. And now things come together. So what could possibly have put that body there, or who, why? And then I have a case for my homicide detective. So it starts with very little things sometimes. Sometimes it starts with a location. Sometimes it starts with a season. Sometimes it starts with a character, and then it sort of blooms from there. Echo started with the field. And so the story grew from there, sort of in circles around this body, this field, this case. And so that's how I'm a pantser, so I don't have an outline or a plan or anything. So that's it. The body's there. Homicide detectives called in. Now we're off to the races. So that's how it starts for me. That's how every book starts for me. And I just sort of pick my way along until I get to the end.
I like that you inserted that word fictionally, that you're not, it's a good place to put a body, fictionally.
I don't want any knocks at my door.
I would imagine that's an interesting way that your brain probably kind of thinks like that, being, since you write crime fiction, that you could just be walking along someday and literally think, that would be.
I mean, it happens all kinds of ways, which is kind of a cool thing about it. I mean, creativity sparks everywhere. So you could be in the cleaners or in the laundromat or doing anything, and something will happen. And, you file it away and it might end up in a book somewhere or not. It just depends.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's an interesting file to have in your brain. Yeah.
You can only imagine.
Yeah.
I've got poisons in there. I've got all kinds of stuff.
Authors' brains in general, I think, are very fascinating and they store a lot of different ideas and different potential plot points. But crime fiction authors, particularly, and I've talked with other authors about this and had these thoughts before, just walking around thinking, I could put a body there. Oh, what if there was a body there? I mean, I just think sometimes I wonder if those thoughts come out when they're not realizing it. It would make for some interesting conversations. Most likely, most of the time, people would know what you did. But for me, I would just like say something and not realize that I was talking to a person who had absolutely no idea why these thoughts were coming out of my head. That's just the way my life works most of the time. But we are going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll be talking a little bit about what I was speaking of earlier with that story that's arcing throughout the first three books and the fourth book that is coming up. So you are tuned in to the GSMC Book Review Podcast, and I will be right back.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Welcome back to the GSMC Book Review Podcast and my conversation with author Tracy Clark. As we get into this second segment, just your second and final reminder that you can support the podcast in a monetary fashion by going to gsmcpodcast.info. Again, not only helps this podcast, but helps the entire network. Again, all of the support that you give me, this podcast, the network, is greatly appreciated. Thank you very, very much. If you do want to leave a question or a comment when you are at that website, you can do that. I'd be happy to engage with that the beginning of the next episode after receiving said question or comment. Again, the website is gsmcpodcast.info. Before the break, Tracy was talking about things that spark ideas, inspirations, jumping off points, etc. In this case, it was a field, and that'd be an interesting place to put a body there. Why is there a body there, etc. So the interesting way that crime fiction authors' brains work. Let's go ahead and return to the conversation with Tracy. As a pantser, and who writes series, you've got two different series. There's things that happen throughout this series that are evolving. There's the case that Harriet's working on in that particular book, but there's also things that are going on through across the books. So as a pantser, is that do you just kind of let that overarching story kind of evolve as you write, or do you have more of an endpoint in mind for that part of the series?
I sort of follow the characters. Harriet's sort of got a complicated backstory, so it's kind of interesting to sort of pull that thread through the books because she has to sort of go on a journey. She has to sort of go from step to step to step, and I don't always know what those steps are ahead of time. I just put her in a room, I give her as much complication as I can possibly give her, and then I see which way she goes. In the first book, we find her, she's really at a low point. But characters have to move. They have to do something. So in book 2, she sort of learned how to rely on her team a little bit. I've given her a different partner and who sort of sees her coming through the door and sort of knows what she sort of needs. And so now she's got Vera on the other side of her, sort of pushing her towards wellness. But that partnership, that combination of those two continues in book 3. We find Harriet in a little different space. She's not great, but she's better than she was in book 1.
Yeah.
And the book that I'm writing now, book 4 in the series, and then we'll sort of pivot to something else. She's a little bit different than she is in book 3. So there's got to be that through line, that thread, that progress. Even if it's 2 steps forward, 1 back, she's got to move. And so I'm putting her in a position where she's got to make those decisions. She's got to make those choices. That she's got to do something different than she did last time, or else, she stagnates. So
Yeah.
I'm always thinking about what's going to move her, what's going to get her to the next spot. And then, of course, the murder case is there, and she has to deal with that. But that's a different side of what the character is about. She's brilliant on the job, great, wonderful investigator, wonderful detective. But then she's got all this personal mess that she hasn't got a handle on. And she needs to get a handle on it. So little by little, little inches, little progress, she sort of figures out what she's got to do, and then she has to do it. But I kind of like that part more than I like the other part. I mean, I like the fact that I've got to dig for her and find where she sort of sits and sort of get her out of the hole she's in, and then figure out what's gonna do that. So I get probably 90% of my time doing that, and then 10%, tossing bodies around. So it's mostly the personal, the character. It's always starts there with me and ends there with me. And so my job as a writer, I think for this series, is to put Harriet in a better place than we found her. So I'm always working on that.
Yeah. And one thing I noticed when I started reading this one, because you were here last time we talked about the first book, and I actually I have them both on my phone. I was reading on my phone, and I thought I need to double check this, because in the first book she's consistently referred to as Foster throughout the book, and now she's Harri. So how did that? Was that? I assume that was a deliberate choice on your part.
Well, because they're getting to know her. When she first walks into there, she's a really prickly pear. I mean, she doesn't want anybody close to her. She is not interested in their personal business. She's not interested in making friends. She is there to work. She's picked a new station. She wanted to transfer. She wanted to get out of the old place, and she just wants to do her job. So she is Foster, okay? Because that's what she's sort of giving off. As they sort of come to know her and know how she works and see her, as Vera does, and the others sort of learn how to do that too, she becomes more of a personal thing to them and her to them. So yeah, it's deliberate, but it's not immediate. It's deliberate but not immediate. So Foster first, as they get to know her, get to rely on her, and she them, Harriet, whatever. Okay, so yeah.
Absolutely. There's a cast of secondary characters around her, mainly other homicide detectives. I would imagine that some of them are a lot of fun to write. Maybe some of them are challenging to write. Is there one that you particularly enjoy?
I like the old timers. I like Szymanski. I like the fact that he's been there forever. He knows how the operation works. He knows how the department works. He knows how the city works. He knows how City Hall. She knows it's all bureaucracy and red tape and bullshit. I mean, basically. I mean, he's been there forever. He's got maybe 5 years before he retires. And then we have this big wave of new detectives coming in. She's got Harriet and Vera and all the new ones with all the progressive ideas. And he doesn't know how to handle it. Okay, I mean, so I like the fact that there's this constant tension and sort of conflict. Old ways, new ways. Old cops, new cops. And so I like that balance. I like the fact that he sort of needles Harri all the time, and she him. I kind of like that irritation. So he would probably be my favorite, and then Vera too. And I think they all sort of complement each other.
Yeah. Szymanski and Harriet are evolving a little bit as well, because they were really prickly in the first book, but they're, it seems like it's more friendly.
Yeah,
more, maybe almost more like siblings. How you pick at your sibling because you can.
I think once she sort of proved herself that she was a good cop, and that's probably the benchmark, that you're in it to sort of be dedicated to it, then they sort of give you a pass, and you're inside the loop, and sort of they treat you like that. So prickly at first, get to know her. She's a good cop. He's a good cop. Okay, now we can sort of work together.
No. This is a little bit random, but I want to ask how in your brain you picture Griffin's office, because when you describe it, for me, I kind of picture it as like
the St. Patrick's Day aisle in Party City sort of threw up in her office.
And that's exactly it. I mean, everything is Kelly Green. She's got fedoras and shillelaghs and all. I love this. I love that office. And it sort of evolves every time I write about it. It gets more obnoxious. I mean, it just gets more. I just love it. It's like a Christmas store blown up. I mean, it's wonderful. And the fact that you sort of balance that sort of festive atmosphere with this really curmudgeon-y,
Yes.
straight-laced. She's got zero humor most of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a wonderful conflict. I like that.
Yeah, and very, very quickly in the book, they meet. I think it's the first couple of pages, and she's got bagpipes playing it. The way you describe it, you don't actually use the word bagpipe, but the way you describe it, I was like, oh, okay, I know what she's listening to.
Yeah, it's fun to write that. It's fun to write. Griffin's, I like her. I think I'm going to probably do more with her as the series goes on. She's really an interesting character that sort of popped up out of nowhere.
Yeah. Does that happen a lot for you? Characters just kind of, there they are.
I need a boss. What kind of boss is she going to be? And there she was. Kelly Green and all, sticks and fedoras and all the rest of that stuff. It just came. So I guess she wanted to be there.
Yeah, I would think so.
I am definitely looking forward to more of Griffin's character being in the next books because I want to see how her arc goes and grows and continues. But really, let's be honest, I want to continue seeing how her office just sounds completely insane to me, and I love the descriptions of it, and it's such a minor part of the book, but it makes me smile every time. So selfishly, I am looking forward to that being a continued element of the series. And yeah, but let's go ahead and take another break. When we come back, we will be talking about writing from multiple points of view throughout the book and the series. You are tuned in to the GSMC Book Review Podcast, and I will be right back.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to the GSMC Book Review Podcast and my conversation with Tracy Clark. We are talking about her Harriet Foster series, and before the break, I was saying how much I enjoy the descriptions of Griffin's office and just picturing it in my head. I'm really glad that I wasn't over projecting how it was being described because I think it's hilarious, especially in juxtaposition to the rest of the area where the other detectives work, and just the starkness and dreariness of the way that Tracy describes some of the other areas, their desks, the locker room, the restrooms, those sorts of things. It's just I picture gray, dull, blah, and then blah, green. So anyway, that's just me. Let's return to the conversation with Tracy.
Obviously Harry's our main character, but we get chapters from some different points of view throughout the book. When you're writing, how do you keep track of, the continuity so that everything meshes? And then how do you decide when you're going to insert a different point of view?
I don't decide. I just sort of let things go. I sort of feel it. It's kind of a weird way to try to explain it, but I sort of feel how the rhythm of the story goes, and I can sort of tell where something has to be. I can't explain what that is or how I do it. I don't have an outline. I don't know what's going to happen. But when I write a scene, when I sort of flow into the next one, it sort of presents itself. So it goes where it needs to go. Now, if I have to go back 5 or 6 times after I've done that first draft to sort of make it all work, I do that. That's what I do on the tail end of it. But when I'm writing this thing, I go where the story goes. I go where the characters take me, and voices come in where they need to come in, And if I take them out later or move them to another spot later, then that's work that I have to do. But as I'm writing it, it sort of goes together. I put it where it needs to. I can sort of feel where it lags, where the pacing has to sort of pick up or slow down. And so that sort of determines what voice has to be there. But these are all things that I just do and don't make a decision about. I just go where the story goes, go where the characters take me. And then when I go back and have to revise it, I revise it. But that's my process. It's weird. It's probably the wrong way to do it. I mean, writers smarter than me have figured this thing out. I have not yet. So this is how I have to do it. This is how my brain works. And so that's my thing. So, I guess I'll
Intuitive instead of weird.
Kind of. I have to sort of feel it, just like I have to feel the sentences. The sentences have to have a rhythm for me.
Yeah.
To sound right. They have to flow off the tongue in the right way. I'm thinking about that for me, and I'm also thinking about that for the reader. When I want the reader to read it, I don't want them stumbling over things awkwardly. I want things to sort of flow together. And so that goes for the language, it goes for the dialogue, it goes for the character development, it goes for the scene, how the scenes sort of stack up on each other. I want them to be sort of like dominoes that sort of fall, bum, 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 bum. And I have to keep writing until I accomplish that. So if I can do that in 3 drafts or 4, or if it takes me 6 or 7, that's what I have to do. So that's what I'm always thinking about. I'm thinking about smoothness. I'm thinking about rhythm. I'm thinking about pacing, and I'm thinking about where these characters are going to go. So all of those little plates are spinning in my head.
Yeah. Do you have then like an editor or beta readers or both that help you with that, some of that?
I don't have a beta reader just because I'm sort of clutchy with my things. So the only person besides me who sees the book is my editor at the publishing house. And they will take whatever fledgling thing that I give them on deadline day, and they will see where I sort of missed the mark somewhere, or could have developed something a little bit more there. Or so I rely on them to sort of fill up the holes that I sort of missed. So I do the best that I can with the drafts that I give them. And then they will tell me what I missed, or what was great, or what wasn't so great, or what could be more developed. And then I go back again and I make those shifts, those changes. And then we do that 2 or 3 times. And then the book is sort of in where it needs to be. And, so that's how it's done. I can probably use a beta reader at some point. It's just that I'm really sort of selfish, and I don't know. I don't know what it is.
Process that works for you. So
Yeah, I guess.
yeah. Any particular research for this book?
No, not really. I talk to cops all the time because I want to sort of, not so much the procedure part of it. I don't care what form they fill out or whatever. I'm interested in motivation, what keeps them doing the job, and how they feel about the job that they do. So my research is more internal in terms of character development. I'm much more interested in how Carrie sort of goes through her day. Not so much what she does and what procedure she follows, but what she thinks about the cases that she's working, and how those cases sort of fit in with the drama that she's going through. So there's not that much research that I do. Now, if I write a scene where I need some sort of detailed police information, I will ask somebody, what will happen in a situation like this? What would a cop do? Blah, blah, blah. And then I will put that in just for the veracity of it. But other than that, it's mostly character for me. And I think that's where my interest is. And then whatever happens with the police part of it, I try to make it sound right or look right or feel right as much as I can do that. And then we go from there. I don't want to really get detail oriented in terms of, who reports to who and blah, blah. I don't care. I don't think readers much care either. But character first, character always.
We were talking before we started recording that this book takes place in February in Chicago, and I was just cold. I think I might have made the same comment when we talked about the first book. It just felt cold. Weather almost is a secondary character. It's hard. It's almost hard to imagine Harri solving a case in the sunshine.
Well, the one I'm writing now takes place in early spring,
Okay.
and you would think that it would be a sort of a nice area. I mean, nice time of year to do it. It's still cold in in spring in Chicago. So there's no snow in this one, but it is cold. And the wind off that lake,
Yes.
when it hits you, takes your breath away. I mean, it literally takes your breath away. And to be able to sort of write that and put that on the pages of a book, to let people experience that. And when you're walking across the Michigan Avenue Bridge and you literally almost get blown into the lake because the wind is so great. I mean, that's an experience. And I kind of like writing, I kind of like letting people know about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so spring for the fourth book. What can you say about the fourth book? Again, without a lot of spoilers.
Well, let's see, what's it about? It's called Edge, tentatively at this point, and it's about a drug that is sort of permeating the city with very ill effects. It's something sort of laced with it, and people are dying. And so Harri and her team are back, and they have to sort of figure out what the connection is, who's selling it, who's inundating the streets with this, and get it to stop before anybody else dies. So that's what Edge is about. It takes place in early spring and moving the seasons around. I'll probably eventually get to a summer where equally inhospitable, but we'll get to that later. I mean, so it's spring, early spring, little buds on the trees. It's a little nippy in the air, rain. So it's not snow this time, but Harry's really not having a good time with the weather either. So I like sort of putting that character in there, the character of the city. It adds just a little element of authenticity to it. It's unique enough so that it sort of pings on Chicago and nowhere else. And nowhere else are you going to get this whipping wind. Nowhere else are you going to get this lake that sort of sits there like an ominous monster. I mean, this is Chicago. And I kind of like putting that as an extra character in there just to sort of ramp up the tension and the conflict and the inhospitableness of this whole crime thing. Just an added element.
Absolutely.
I talked about the weather at the beginning before the interview, and I feel like Harri never gets good weather. Like, I realize it's Chicago, but it always feels like it's the depths of winter. And even this book that's coming up in the spring sounds cold. So, that phrase, "this is why we can't have nice things." I feel like Harri, if she's talking to Tracy, is saying something along the lines of, "Why can't I just have nice weather?" Maybe not, but that's what I think she's saying. Or maybe that's just me saying it because I want to be warm while I read the book. We're going to take our final break of this episode. When we come back, we'll be talking a little bit about the titles of the books in the series. You are tuned in to the GSMC Book Review Podcast, and I will be right back. Welcome back to the GSMC Book Review Podcast. Before the break, Tracy was talking about book 4 and the fact that it's still cold even in spring, which, poor Harri. I know she's fictional, but still, poor Harri. Let's return now to the conclusion of this conversation with Tracy Clark.
All the titles in this series are one word, so very short titles. Reasoning behind that?
That's the publisher. Apparently
Okay.
one words are my thing now. Not only one word, but 4 letters in the word. So I don't know how they figure out the algorithm or how it sort of works for marketing or whatever like that, but I'll leave that to them. They're experts in that area. So the titles are them. I'm fine with them. And my job is to sort of fill what's between the title and the last page. So that's my job right there. And I'll leave the title and the covers to them, because they're the expert at it.
Yeah. Yep. You're writing the story. They can kind of figure out the
Yep.
particulars, right?
Yep.
So you said working on book 4 and then maybe pivoting to something else. What are you going to work on next, do you think?
It's going to be my first standalone. I'm not sure what it is yet because I sort of start thinking about the next book halfway through the one I'm writing. So I'm sort of percolating ideas about what that one will be. But it will definitely not be a series. So it'll be my first foray into standalones, and we'll see how that goes. But I'm looking for characters now. I'm looking for situations, what the story might be about. And so it's in the back of my head while I'm writing this one. And when I get closer to that point when I'll actually have to start writing it, something hopefully, knock wood, will come to me. So a smarter writer would have a plan or work an outline out, but that's not me. My brain doesn't work that way. So when I need it, it will be there, hopefully, knock wood. And until then, I'll concentrate on what I'm doing now.
Sorry, backing up to book 4, do you have an estimate for when that might be out?
Well, I'm due to them on the 15th of March, ominous date. So I think probably December is my sort of month, my release month. So I would think December of 2025 or whatever.
Yeah, seems like forever away. It's going to be here. We're going to blink and it'll be December.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when you have time to just read for you, what have you been reading?
Well, I'm reading actually I have it here. Rachel Hall's new book, last one.
Ooh, I like that cover.
Foray into romantasy. I've never read anything in that genre before, but it's amazing. And she's such a great writer that she sort of sucks you in. So that's what I'm reading now in between what other stuff that I'm doing. And I'm really enjoying it. So I would recommend it for anybody.
Yeah. Hold up. It's got the decorated, there's a word for that, but I'm blanking on when they paint the side.
But it's perfect. Isn't it beautiful?
Yeah.
Beautiful inside and out. It's great.
The things they do with books anymore, it's amazing.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. You have a website, so if you can share your website and any place people can find you on social media.
Well, it's Tracy Clark Books. Just check it out. I'm also on Blue Sky and Instagram and let's see, Facebook. So, just type my name in, and my picture is, and just drop me a line.
Okay. Tracy, is there anything that we haven't covered that you wanted to make sure that you brought up about Echo or the series itself?
No, I think we're good. I mean, if you're in for a good read and a good crime novel, check me out and hope you enjoy it.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I know we're right up close to Christmas, so thank you so much for taking time to talk to me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to Tracy for joining me to talk about Echo and the rest of the Harriet Foster series. I enjoy very much when Tracy comes to the podcast. Definitely check out her first interview if you're interested in hearing us talk about the first book in the series, which is called Hide. And if you are a fan of crime fiction, maybe you like being really cold while you read. I'm kidding. No, but if you are a fan of crime fiction, if you like books set in Chicago, if you like series that involve very, Harri is a strong female character, but she's also a broken female character. She's strong in a lot of ways, but she's very, very broken in other ways. And she's got a lot of growing that she is doing, and she's working through a lot of difficult emotional situations on a bunch of different levels. So if you are a fan of character development in that form, then this is a series that you should definitely check out. There are currently 3 books with a 4th one coming out to continue the story. You've got the other series as well that Tracy writes. So if maybe you're already a fan of Tracy and you haven't, but you should definitely check out this newest book, but maybe you're looking for a new crime fiction author, and Tracy is a good place to start. So go check out her books. I hope you will join me for the next episode. We'll be switching gears to urban fantasy, which is exciting. I haven't done urban fantasy in a while. I will be speaking with author Yvette Davis about The Others. This is the first book in I believe it's going to be a trilogy, urban fantasy set in San Francisco. I am excited to talk to Yvette and learn more about this series and this first book in particular. So please do join me for that episode. In the meantime, if you're a fan of this podcast, please do me the Christmas favor of of liking, following, subscribing, what have you, on whatever platform you are either listening to or watching this podcast on. And if you're listening to this podcast and you hear me say it, watching this podcast, you can also, if you want to see the authors that I'm speaking with, you can watch on YouTube. You can watch the podcast on video now, as well as listening to it. But either way, I'm grateful. So please do like, follow, and subscribe on whatever platform you are partaking of this episode on. Also, if you could leave a nice review, excellent. Thank you so much. Really does help the algorithm. It's greatly appreciated. And if you're on social media, you can follow this podcast on Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. Looking forward to seeing you on social media, engaging with you, ask me your questions, tell me what's going on in your life in terms of books and reading. Merry Christmas if you're celebrating. Happy Hanukkah if you're celebrating. Merry whatever you are celebrating this week. I hope that it is wonderful. I hope you're having a lovely, lovely week filled with whatever type of family is best for you. And whatever type of books are best for you. I hope that you get a lot of book time this week, especially. Whatever this week throws at you, I really, really do hope that it throws you plenty of time to get yourself lost in a good book. Thank you so much. I will talk to you next time.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to